I also wanted to come on here to talk about the theme of the week, which is, in case you haven't noticed, MTHFR. And depending on how you look at it, it's either one of the most complicated things you will ever come across or one of the more simple things. And let's discuss. In case you're not familiar with what MTHFR is, it is a gene that is largely involved in the methylation cycle, and the methylation cycle is a process required by many functions in the body. So this includes the nervous system, hormone system, heavy metal detoxification, energy production, so on and so forth. So many functions in the body require this process and for the MTHFR gene to function properly. Methylation is also super important for baby's development during pregnancy. During pregnancy, there's tons of cell differentiation, and so methylation is going to support the correct instructions being given to those cells and what to, create. It's also important for and involved in genetic expression too. So our ability to methylate is obviously very important. Now, about half of the population here in the US has an MTHFR gene mutation or MTHFR polymorphism, MTHFR variation. But there's also this thing called epigenetics. And you might have heard of this analogy before. Genes load the Nerf gun, environment pulls the trigger. But just because we have a genetic polymorphism doesn't necessarily mean we're predestined to experience all the things that, the internet's telling us or that our healthcare provider is telling us. And I'm not saying to ignore this information, but there are factors that can influence how our MTHFR genes express, is basically what I'm trying to say. So one primary thing that might be influential in determining how our MTHFR genes express is our liver health. And the liver is where the majority of methylation takes place, if you didn't know. The liver is also a storage organ for many important nutrients involved in methylation, like copper, B vitamins like B2, many important amino acids, and many other nutrients. And so I talked about the connection between MTHFR and vitamin B2 on Monday, and there's, in my opinion, no coincidence in that, the liver contains a lot of vitamin B2 riboflavin. So the liver can become less effective at performing its various functions, and it performs over 500 functions, and it automatically knows how to do this. But it can become less effective if it's not getting the nutrition that it needs to power itself. So those vitamins and nutrients, minerals that I talked about, as well as sugar. So glycogen is super important and helps power those 500 plus functions as well. So the liver obviously needs a lot of nutrition. It needs a lot of vitamins, minerals, amino acids, glucose, sugar, and if we can't methylate properly, we may also miss out on some nutrients that were supposed to be created or converted down the line. This may also show up as higher homocysteine levels because we're no longer able to regulate them properly, and homocysteine is an inflammatory marker and can be associated with higher complication risk during pregnancy. I've also been diving into more and more research and have been noticing that there may be a viable connection between MTHFR and tongue ties in babies. And so this may not be a concern for you at this very moment, but down the line, if your baby has trouble latching or feeding, maybe they're losing weight quickly, they might have a tongue tie. Tongue ties can also create issues speaking properly as well. So, down the line, it could be that this methylation issue manifests that way as well. So what I'm trying to say here, and the take-home message is simplified, is that if we give the body what it needs to function properly and optimally, the body will usually function properly and optimally. And I'm not trying to undermine anyone's experience with MTHFR here. That's not what this is about. But I think at the end of the day, the answers to the questions that we have are often simpler than we think. And in working with hundreds of women, I've witnessed so many of them that have MTHFR issues go from extremely symptomatic with extremely elevated homocysteine levels, high inflammatory markers, to being pregnant, having a thriving pregnancy, and healthy babies. And so what I want to offer you is hope and, hope that your MTHFR polymorphism isn't your destiny and that it doesn't define you. So that's my soapbox for the day. I hope you at least found these stories somewhat informational, helpful, hopeful. That's really what it was for. I know that many of you will ask me to save these, so I will save them under my methylation highlight, and I might even make this an IGTV video if you want to, watch the long form video again. But yeah, I hope this provided some hope. I do talk about this too a lot more in my course, Conscious Conception. There's a lot more supplemental advice, a lot more guidance on navigation for nutrition for people with MTHFR there. So if you're interested in also learning more, you can check that out.